Aloha mai kākou. Welcome to the 15th installment of the Keolanui Center for Sustainable Island Food Systems Brown Bag Speaker Series. I want to mahalo everyone for joining as we explore one of the most urgent issues facing Hawaii's communities and agriculture today, farm and food system labor. This session will look closely at how recent immigration policy, enforcement actions, and wage standards are shaping the lives of farm workers, the viability of farms, and the overall well-being of our communities. My name is Ioane, and on behalf of the center, I want to thank today's speakers and all of you for contributing to this important conversation. Please take a moment, if you can, to scan the QR code on the current slide to access our website for information and additional resources. But I'll also be posting links in the Zoom chat as we progress, so don't worry if you can't get to it. And I will include resources, articles, and speaker contacts that are connected to this conversation. And please, if you haven't done so, subscribe to our MailChimp to receive newsletters and follow us on Instagram at Keolanui Center for event updates. Additionally, a recording of this event will be sent out to all registered attendees following the session. So within a few days, I'll get that all generated. A little bit about the center. The Keolanui Center is an initiative within the University of Hawaii system, co-directed by Dr. Noah Lincoln and Dr. Albie Miles. And our mission is to strengthen Hawaii's food system through food security and justice, ecological sustainability, education, storytelling, policy, cross-sector collaboration, and community partnerships. This Brown Bag Speaker Series was created to bridge gaps and share stories from the field, as well as build alignment around Hawaii's most pressing food systems issues. Within our islands, food system work is vibrant, but often fragmented. We see a lot of people doing great things, but they're often working in silos. So our long-term vision is to understand how the UH system can best support food system transformation and service of the people and lands of Hawaii. Some of our broader work, the center also engages in applied research and data analysis, community education and events, policy monitoring and advocacy. And we feel by convening practitioners, policymakers, and educators, we're helping shape Hawaii's path toward greater food sovereignty and resilience. A little bit about today's topic and context. We're talking about farm and food system labor in Hawaii and exploring the impacts of recent immigration policy on farms and community well-being. Today's conversation is going to dive into recent immigration policies and laws and how they shape Hawaii's labor force, legal procedures and worker rights during ICE enforcement, and the impacts on producers, farm workers, and the communities they live in. Each speaker is going to have roughly 25 minutes for their presentation. And I encourage all of our guests to use the Zoom Q&A feature to submit questions at any time during the presentation. And we will get to those questions as soon as we can and provide thoughtful responses. The session is informed by multiple resources, including HDOA labor reports, federal and state policy updates, and local news and community perspectives to help frame the most relevant questions for our speakers. And upon request, I can also provide links or articles to anyone interested in exploring deeper into these sources. So please email me at keomau@hawaii.edu, and I can get those resources to you as soon as possible. Some of the guiding questions that some of the questions rather that we're asking today to achieve our learning outcomes. How do rising wage standards like Hawaii's AEWR affect farm operations and workers? What rights and procedures should workers know during immigration enforcement actions? What impacts are these policies having on producers, workers' lives, and the communities around them? And what steps can community members take now to support just and sustainable farm labor? So I want to introduce today's presenters. We're honored to welcome two leaders who bring both policy expertise and on-the-ground experience. First, we have SongYi Paik, Assistant Extension Agent in Agricultural Finance at CTAHR, University of Hawaii. Her work examines agricultural wages, immigration policy, and farm finance. And we also have Troy Keolanui, co-founder of OK Farms, Hawaii Island, and he manages labor and operations, including the H-2A program, and brings the practical realities of farming under today's labor and immigration climate. At this time, I'd like to hand it over to SongYi.
Yes, thank you. And yeah, let me share my screen. Okay, yeah, now I got it.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, fine. Yeah, can you see my slides?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Yes. So thank you for inviting me to Keomao Center's Brown Bag series. And again, so I'm SongYi and I'm working at CTAHR at the University of Hawaii. So I started this position from last September. So if I'm new to you, I'm really happy to say hello, and I'm really happy to be connected. Today I will talk about the agricultural labor in Hawaii. And so the agricultural labor is very important in the US, in the agriculture sector. Although like mechanization has improved, like big tractors, harvester, like sprayer using a drone, but still crops like fruits and vegetables need labor for physical work. So, for example, the US Census data shows that more than 60% of farm workers are migrant, which means farmers hire many workers from outside of their local area. So, and also around like 40% of farm workers are undocumented, which means farmers are really struggling to find local workers. But these ag labor issues are really important, especially in Hawaii, because we grow lots of specialty crops, which are labor intensive. So when I meet many farmers in Hawaii, and lots of farmers share their concerns about their difficulties of hiring workers. So I think this topic is timely and very important. So I'm happy to talk and discuss this issue with you. So for the outline of my presentation, I want to give a snapshot of agricultural labor in Hawaii and introduce H-2A visa program and what could be a good strategies for building a sustainable farm workforce. And then I switch a gear to introduce immigration policies affecting agriculture and recent immigration enforcement like ICE raids and how employers and workers can prepare for that. So first, I want to show the trend of the number of hired workers in Hawaii and California. So the data comes from Farm Labor Survey. So this conducts every like twice a year. And as you can see here, the Hawaii, the blue line, shows that around 5,000 workers are hired in Hawaii over time, and it is pretty stable. The data rounds to the nearest thousands, so I cannot know the exact number, but that's the average. But if you see the California data, which shows the orange one, they're hiring around 140,000 workers on average. And you see there's a seasonality. So the line goes up and down, which means during the harvest season, farmers want to hire lots of workers. So that's why we see the seasonality. But in Hawaii, we plan to grow and harvest pretty year-round our crops. So that's why we don't see much seasonality. But this one shows the trend of hourly wage rate. So if you see the graph on the left, it shows the nominal hourly wage rate. So as you can see here, Hawaii, the blue line, and also California, the orange line, the wage rate increases over time, have increased over time, reaching around $23.50 for Hawaii this April 2025, whereas California reached around like $22. But on the right-hand side, it shows the real hourly wage rate, which is inflation adjusted at the April 2025 level. The reason why I created this version because a $1 value in 2020 is different from $1 value in 2025, right? So for example, the $16 wage rate in 2020 is its value is equal to $20 in terms of this year dollar value. So the point here is that for Hawaii, the real hourly wage rate have increased over time, even though there's up and down, right? Whereas the California real hourly wage rates pretty much is stable or at like $22. So, but as you can see here, Hawaii on average pay higher wage rate to farm workers, which implies, Hawaii farms face higher labor costs compared to California. So now I want to introduce H-2A visa program. So farmers, they can hire U.S. workers, but if they cannot find workers in the U.S. citizen workers, they can hire foreign workers through the H-2A visa program. So this program started in 1986 when Immigration Reform and Control Act was passed. And that act is trying to control illegal immigrants. And the purpose of this visa program is to fill temporary or seasonal ag labor needs when U.S. workers are not available. And the unique feature of this program is that there's no cap on how many workers farmers can hire. So it is completely different from H-1B or H-2B visa. And if farmers hire H-2A visa workers, they have to provide free housing and transportation from a home country to your farm, as well as daily commuting transportation if housing is not close to your farm, and also have to give meals or a kitchen. So I found that in Hawaii, around like 60% of H-2A employers provide meals, and they charge between $15 to $16 per day. But if they don't provide meals, they have to provide kitchen facilities so that workers can prepare their own meal. And another feature is the minimum wage. So if employers hire H-2A workers and they have to pay at least agriculture minimum wage, which is called adverse effect wage rate. The reason why we call this ag minimum wage adverse effect wage rate, because it is trying to avoid giving any adverse effect to the U.S. workers. Because normally the foreign workers, they're more willing to work at lower wages, compared to the citizen. So if there's no ag minimum wage, and employers will pay lower wage rate to foreign workers, and that can affect also the U.S. citizen workers. Because farmers don't want to pay really high wage rates to U.S. workers. So policymakers worry about this phenomenon like wage suppression. So that's why this wage rate, ag minimum wage, was set up. So this map shows the current ag minimum wage in the US. And as you can see here, some states in the Midwest and some states in the West Coast have really high ag minimum wage, and the Hawaii here, we have the highest ag minimum wage at like $20, around $20. And it was like around 7% increase from the last year. So it was a pretty high jump. So I'm really interested in this agriculture minimum wage. So I studied how these agriculture minimum wage affect employment, working hours, and hourly wages. So I found that if the ag minimum wage increases, it also increases the employment of the US workers, especially Hispanic. Why it happens? Because as you can see in this descriptive statistics, the numbers within the parentheses shows the average hourly wage rate for each group of workers. And among citizens, as you can see here, the Hispanic received the lowest wage rate, right? $15 compared to like $19 for white workers. So if the agriculture minimum wage increases, and the farmers want to avoid that high agriculture minimum wage, so they don't want to hire H2 workers. So if they don't hire H2 workers, they don't need to pay this high minimum wage, right? So they want to avoid hiring H2 workers. So they're more willing to hire like the US workers, and they're trying to find whom they want to hire, and they find Hispanic workers because employers don't need to pay really high wage rate. So that's why we see these the result. And this is the core result from my paper. And so now I want to introduce how the H2 visa program look like in Hawaii. So the green line shows the trend of the number of H2 workers certified. And as you can see here, it's very, the trend has like going up and up. And this trend is pretty similar in Hawaii as well. So in 2024, Hawaii hired 465 H2 workers. And here you can see the higher jump in 2011. It is because Global Ag Services, I'm not sure you are aware of these services, but Global Ag Services, they hire lots of H2 workers during that time and also even now as well. So Global Ag Services is H2A labor contractor. So in Hawaii, there's so many small farms, right? So it is really hard for them to hire H2A workers because of lots of paperwork, and they have to pay, the housing and transportation fee. So the H2A labor contractor, they hire H2A workers, and then they make a contract with farmers, and then they allocate the H2A workers to each farm. So that's the role of the labor contractor. And I was surprised that in Hawaii, this is the only ag labor contractor. But if I'm wrong, please correct me. But that's what I found. It is very interesting because on the mainland, and especially California, there's so many ag labor contractors. So I'm really interested in to know why we don't have many labor contractors and what are the difficulties from their side. So yeah. And in terms of geography, I found that Hawaii Island hire the most HRT workers, followed by the Kauai. So then in terms of the type of work, the most HT workers are hired for crop production and field work, and followed by coffee. So lots of HT workers are hired for coffee farm in Kona. But the thing that I want to mention is we don't see many H2 workers for livestock industry. It is because livestock industry, they need workers year round, right? Because workers need to help like cleaning, like feeding, like monitoring animals. But the HD program is designed only for seasonal or temporary work. So this program does not allow the year-round employment. So that's why you don't see many cases for livestock, and this trend is very similar on the mainland too. So livestock industry raised their concern that the H2 program needs to be amended because it does not fit their industry. So these days I keep thinking about what could be a good strategies for solving the labor shortage issues in Hawaii. Because these days I'm going to Ka'u often because there's a coffee project there. And many coffee farmers, they share their concern about finding workers. And it is not happening only Ka'u or coffee industry. It is all over the place in Hawaii. So I tried to come up with like 3 ideas and I want to share. So I'm not sure it's like a feasible or a good strategy. So I'm always happy to share your opinions. But the first idea is housing support. So if farmers can provide or at least support housing for workers, employers may find workers more easily and retain workers. So when I met one coffee farm in Ka'u, she told me that he provide egg housing to their workers, and he has had no issue of finding workers. And actually, workers are trying to contact him to ask whether they can work on their farm, on his farm. So that story was very interesting to me. And I thought, oh, ag housing can be one solution, one of the solutions. So one provision included in the Farm Worker Modernization Act, which I will explain more detail later, but they propose grant subsidies to property owners who house H2 workers or give a housing loans grants to the new housing for ag workers. So I think those kind of like policy or government support can help to build ag housing for employers. And then the second idea is employers share labor through the cooperatives. So normally farmers need more workers during the harvest season. So they don't need workers like all year round, right? So if multiple employers hire workers together, so employers don't need to find workers individually, and also from the worker side, they can have a consistent work so that they can secure their income. So I think it is a win-win strategy. But the process of hiring workers and share workers together is quite complex because employers have to find workers and they need to line up who are interested in hiring workers and coordinating the schedule, right? So I think the cooperatives can step in and help this process. And the third part is Farm Workforce Modernization Act. So this is not passed yet, and is really trying to pass this one, but not yet. But in this act, it suggests portable agricultural worker pilot program. So which means employers can hire H2 workers together. So multiple employers hire H2 workers, and the H2 workers move around to help the registered employers. Because right now, the H2 program the workers only tied to one employer. So it does not allow to share H2 workers. So that's the pilot program suggested in this act. And also this act suggests year-round agricultural worker visas. So I think in a Hawaii context is much more makes sense because not only the livestock industry, but also like fruit and vegetable, we grow crops year-round. So yeah, so these are the three things. And now I want to switch gear to the immigration policies. Okay. So let me introduce two policies really quick due to the limit of time. So the Farm Worker Protection Rule was effective in 2024. And the goal of this one is try to expand employment protections for H2A workers. So the key provisions include rights for workers to organize and engage in collective action, which means farm workers can join a union. And also the employers have to have a reasonable and good reason why they terminate a contract with the H2 workers. So those are some of the provisions included in this rule. However, right after this rule was effective, lots of opposition came in, and eventually, like after 2 months later, the federal judges blocked this rule, and it applied to, I think it was applied to 14 or 17 states. At the time, Hawaii was not included, but eventually, after the Trump administration started, this enforcement is suspended in June 20 this year. And then the second one is Farm Workforce Modernization Act, which I introduced 2 slides before. But this one introduced in 2019 to help farmers meet their labor needs. And it passed the House twice, but failed in the Senate. The current proposal already has been introduced in the House, so let's see what happened this and next year. So the key provisions include a pathway to legal status and a green card for undocumented agriculture workers. To get a green card, I mean, there's a strict rule, like how many years the workers have to work on the agricultural sector, but that's the thing. And then the second one is reforms to the H2 program to streamline the visa process, reform wages, and so on. Because now the visa process is a little bit complicated, but that act is trying to make the process like straightforward. Yeah, so again, this one, it has not passed yet, but I just wanted to introduce because there are like multiple attempts to pass this act. So maybe at some point it can affect the US and also Hawaii. So now I want to introduce what happens and what's happening in terms of immigration enforcement, like for example, ICE raids. So this graph shows the trend of the number of cases that people were detained by arresting agency. So the CBP means Customs and Border Protections, which forces enforcement at or near the border. And also ICE is Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which normally forces immigration in the interior. And as you can see here, recently the number of detentions like skyrocket, like in 2025. And this happens also in Hawaii. So lots of papers, they report ICE arrested people in Hawaii, and also like coffee industry as well. And this graph shows the trend. So as you can see here in 2025, the number of cases like people were detained increased significantly. And it peaked in May, and then it is decreasing right now. Because in the mid-June, the Trump administration ordered a pause to immigration raids because like many industries raise concerns about these raids and that affect their industry and hiring labor. So this is the trend. And so now how employers and workers prepare for ICE raids. So here I just wanted to mention a key point. So for employers, ICE may visit your farm for I-9 audit, a raid, or detaining specific people. So please make sure you comply with I-9 employment eligibility verification requirements. So I-9 is for you to check whether your workers are eligible to work in the US. So there's the I-9 form, and in section 1, workers fill out the form, and in section 2, section 1, workers fill the blank, and then the section 2, employers fill out the form. And employers have to check the immigration documents for workers, or like whether they're citizens or not, and so on. It's not really complicated to fill out the form, and the Cornell University provide like presentation and like videos how you fill out the form. So employers don't need to you don't expect to like submit this form to any person or any agencies. It's just put in your cabinet, also on file. So if like ICE comes in, and you can verify that your workers are eligible to work in your farm by showing I-9. And second is train farm managers on how to respond during a raid if you're not present. Because if you don't have good guidelines, and when raid comes, and farm managers can freak out, right? And the last thing is indicate a private area of your business with a private sign. Because if raids comes in, and they can go to like public area, but not private area. So if you have a sign of this, your office, for example, is your private area, then without judicial or administrative warrant, ICE cannot enter the private area. So please make sure that you have a private sign. And this is a good guidelines, what you need to consider when ICE comes. It is provided by Cornell Cooperative Extension, but due to a limited time, I will not cover this. But yeah, so here for workers, you have a right to remain silent, and you also have a right to speak to your lawyer. So you can keep silent before your lawyer comes, and also do not lie or give false documents, because it is criminal and it negatively affects your case. So yeah, the last slide. So I want to give resources that employers and workers can use. The first one, Migrant and Seasonal Farm Worker Outreach Program. So it is a federal level program. And so, for example, workers, they can reach out to them to get labor law protection resources, or even like resume writing. But for employers, they can get a service for job posting, job seeker screening, and so on. So there are 4 offices in Hawaii. And the second one is the legal clinic in Honolulu. So the legal clinic joined the Immigration Law and Justice Network. It is a nonprofit network which gives free or very low consulting regarding the legal services. So that's the last thing, and thank you so much for listening. My
Mahalo
presentation.
nui, SongYi. Thank you so much. That was a big chunk of information. And I will post your email in the chat, so if people want to follow up and ask any questions, they can do so. So now we're going to shift gears over to welcome Troy Keolanui from OK Farms, Hawaii Island. Troy, welcome.
Aloha, kako. Thanks for the invite, Ioane. Happy to share our mana'o on the subject. We did found OK Farms in 2002 with Ed Olson here in Hilo. It's a 320-acre, mostly tropical fruit, but diversified farm. I also work for the Olson Trust as their chief agricultural manager, where we farm approximately 2,000 acres of macadamia, and we farm and manage approximately 300 acres of coffee in the Pahala area of Kau. So following up on SongYi's info, which was very good, by the way, SongYi, mahalo for all of that. Everybody knows that farming is difficult, and farming in Hawaii is especially difficult. The value of the land, just our economy based on tourism, it is very difficult to find people. The history of macadamia and coffee harvesting on the island, for decades, most farms paid their harvesters by the piece or by the pound for coffee and for macadamias as well. And it was a very effective and very efficient way for us to track our costs and be able to compare our costs to what we're harvesting. But for the Department of Labor, who we've had visits from on our farm, that's not acceptable. It's the reason for that is that the Department of Labor's job is to make sure that everyone is receiving minimum wage and being covered by the federally mandated insurance programs and whatnot that has to be done. So we've had those visits, we've had that education, we've been fined only once so far. So we want to try to not do that again. So what we've installed at our farms is paying everyone at least minimum wage. And then beyond that, you can have a incentive program where if the harvesters reach that competent level that we consider worth paying a bonus to, then we do, both in macadamia nuts and in coffee as well. So going forward, the few people that are available to us that are willing to do this kind of work in an efficient manner and show up, consistently, it's tough to find. It's a known fact, and Americans aren't going to do it, and my kids won't do it. So it's tough. And the folks from the Philippines and other countries, mostly Central and South America, they're eager to work, and their willingness and thankfulness to have work that is considered difficult by a lot of us is, it's self-evident. So even at that point, it's hard to find people that are willing to do it. Most of the folks that we have working for us on our payrolls are from the Philippine Islands. Most of them are 60 plus years old. Most of their families and the next generation of their families, they're not going to do this work. They're moving on to something else. So we had to stay in business, we had to seek out H2A, and we did hire the company that SongYi mentioned, Global Ag. They are a labor contractor that provides these H2A workers. It is, we've had them now for 3 years. And the workforce is good. They're good workers. They're managed by Global Ag. We've had them now for 3 years, so you get a lot of the same people over and over. So they get better over the years. They get more used to the job. We bring in 25 every season. We keep them for 5 months, from September to the end of January, for mostly the coffee and macadamia nut harvest seasons. My understanding is that H-2A workers can stay in the islands for 10 months, and then they have to return to their home country. I'm not sure exactly how long that is, but Global Ag has been great. They manage the people well. Olson Trust provides adequate housing. The housing piece is crucial, like SongYi mentioned. I mean, the housing has to be inspected by the Department of Health. So they have to approve it. It has to be decent. You know, we can't put people in shacks and inadequate housing. I've heard about problems in Kona with others that have brought in H-2A, and they got in trouble for the housing. The housing has to be specifically good. It's an expensive piece. For the Olson Trust, we have the ability to get it done. The problem with the whole H-2A effort is that, like mentioned earlier, the minimum wage for paying these folks is $20.08. On top of that, Global Ag will add their piece for the management, and that piece comes out to about $10 an hour per person. So right now you're up at $30 an hour. And then when you add the housing piece, that adds another very expensive part that is very difficult to overcome. So for us, even though getting the work is great, getting the work done is great, it's cost prohibitive. It really is. We did it the first year. When you crunch the numbers, it's painful. The second year, you know, we had no choice but to bring them in again. And again, it's cost prohibitive. If you're not selling your products for that amount that's going to make ends meet, then bringing in H-2A is going to be extremely tough for you. This year, we took a different approach, and we negotiated with Global Ag to kind of pay them by the pound. And that's something that you can't do with your own people and the federal government, but you can do it with a contractor like Global Ag. So we set a baseline of how many pounds that we're going to guarantee to provide them to harvest, and they are going to pay us per pound to a certain extent. It helps us to budget. It helps us to figure out our costs. We just can't go in blindly. A lot of these costs, the labor costs for harvesting, it depends on what you have in the field. It depends how heavy the crop is in the field. They can get to that quota amount very easily when there's a lot. And then at the beginning and the end of the season, it tapers off. So it's difficult, and the cost per pound goes very high. So we're trying this year. We're going to see how it goes. Again, you know, Global Ag is really a good, professional, reliable outfit. Even, you know, we've tried bringing in green card holding people from the mainland that wanted to do this work, or at least they thought they wanted to do this work. And it turns into just a mess, because you need that management piece watching over these people and making sure that everything's good, not just while they're on the farm, but they manage them when they're in the Olson Trust housing. It's very important for them to understand that there's consequences for misbehavior, and we've had lots of problems with bringing our own people in. So is H-2A the answer? We think it might be. We're hopeful that it will be. You know, the Olson Trust is committed to agriculture in the state of Hawaii, but it's difficult. And, you know, getting it done is going to take a group effort. It's going to take input from the state, the federal side, and private entities that are committed to agriculture in Hawaii. It's a daunting task. It's something that we're committed to, but, you know, things have to pencil out in Hawaii. you know, the cost of doing business, especially in ag, is prohibitive. You know, the history of ag in Hawaii, starting with sugarcane. The reason sugarcane's not here anymore is because of international competition. We couldn't produce sugar that compares to what can be produced in other countries. It's happened to pineapples. It's happening right now to macadamia nuts. It's happening to coffee as well. You know, so for us to price the coffee at that price where we're going to break even it's scary for us because it's high. You know, are people really going to support Hawaiian grown products because they love Hawaii? I think not. I think they're gonna follow their wallets and their pocketbooks to be able to get things at, you know, a fair price. Don't want to be too pessimistic because we are committed to ag in Hawaii, but the reality is that's very difficult. I think that H2A is that piece that can provide really good people. You know, the people that we've seen come in on H2A are really awesome workers. They're here to work. They appreciate the work. And Global Ag has been really great. So that's pretty much what I got, Ioane, and I'm glad to answer any questions that anyone has. Glad to share any information that we have concerning H2A and how it's worked for us.
Yeah, mahalo nui, Troy. Waiting to see if any of our audience members want to populate the Q&A feature. Nobody's got anything so far, so I had a few questions just in listening and being curious, and just really dove into this topic without a lot of understanding about what was going on with everything. And it's a lot of this stuff is kind of astonishing, like how this is gone and how it affects people. And I guess I was curious, like, what is the biggest impact on the community around you for all of these recent, you know, ICE raids and all this implementation policy? And you know, what's the climate like in that area?
You know, for us, you know, the community is supportive of our agricultural efforts. So we haven't gotten any blowback about bringing in the H2As. I mean, everyone in the community, and Pahala is a small community, knows that, you know, we have applications for work. The folks that do come out and try, honestly, they don't last. It's a heavy realization of what this kind of work involves. You know, it's both physically and mentally taxing. We have had problems with the green card holding folks that we brought in and kind of left them on their own after hours. But the global ag folks have been really professional about keeping their people in line and respectful. And they're staying in our housing, so it's kind of important. We will hear about it very quickly if there is a problem. So if something like that does happen, we act appropriately.
Yeah. And has any of this started generating conversation about like shifting crop concentration and looking at, you know, diversifying into other things for you guys at this point? Is that like a real conversation on the horizon for a lot of farmers around there?
I think so, Ioane. I think, you know, like I mentioned, you know, there, as little as we like it, the macadamia nuts is headed down that path where sugarcane went and pineapples went. Macadamia nuts are specifically produced in countries like South Africa that have cheap labor laws, places like Australia that are highly mechanized with really fantastic flat ground, and other places where we really can't compete. And, you know, you have Hawaiian producers bringing in foreign kernel and putting it in their bags. And you know what? I don't blame them for doing it because it's a really good business move. It's just a lousy move for agriculture in Hawaii because it crushed many small farms. Because we cannot grow macadamia nuts and sell them for 80 cents. We just can't.
Yeah.
You're just losing money. So are we looking at other crops? Heck yeah. It was Ed Olson's mission to promote ag in Hawaii, and he passed away last year, but it's our duty to carry that flag forward for as long and as high as we can.
Yeah, keep adapting, keep pushing forward. Is there any policy work being done right now? Any conversations with, trying to get things at the state legislature to help out with this? Any ideas on policy that could help?
I think there is some labeling legislature that got passed that's going to start in January. But I think, as far as macadamias go, I think it's too little too late. I think that the damage is done. I think a lot of small operators in the state have thrown in the towel, and it's really going to be hard for them to come back. The trees on the Big Island, most of them are old. There's very few young orchards on the Big Island, so that too adds to the ease of throwing in the towel and just giving it up. So is there that next crop that we can promote and be successful with for people and small farms? We think there is. And without letting the cat out of the bag, it's related to those things that we import a lot of. We have a viable cattle industry here that imports 75% of the feed for both dairies and for beef cattle. Most of the cattle here on the Big Island are shipped out to feedlots in the mainland, and they're harvested in the mainland, and most of the meat stays in the mainland. To bring it back here is cost prohibitive, but that food needs to stay here. That's where we need to work towards, and it's a group effort. It's a group effort between the state, the federal government, private industry, and the farmers. We all have to be on the same page to be successful, or we're gonna crumble. And Hawaii's economy is based on tourism, and tourism and farming kind of mix, but not really. We saw it when COVID hit and the pandemic took us out. A lot of us pivoted towards making produce boxes and other things and banding together to help each other out. But really, the rug came out from under us during the pandemic, and all of a sudden, our realization of how limited we are without tourism was very evident and very shocking, really, to look and see what that was like.
Yeah, I think, all of this just highlights more and more to me, like how underappreciated and recognized farmers, farm workers, the entire industry is really. But it's nice to hear your dedication, moving forward. SongYi, did you have anything to weigh in on with like in the realm of policy with this generally in all farming in Hawaii?
Yeah, just to add comments to Troy's. Yeah, I think the planting new crops can be one way. I mean, especially the high value crop. For example, I could meet agave farm in Maui, and so we have like three, as I know, three agave farms in Maui in whole like in Hawaii, and it's pretty quite profitable. And but not only agave but other crops, if we can find the crops that grow well in Hawaii and also high value crop, I think we can try to grow at some point. And in terms of the policy, as I know, the state of Hawaii gives tax credit for constructing ag housing for employers and their family as well as workers. And another bill suggested, even though it's not passed, it suggested that give incentives for farm cluster housing. So if employers build ag housing in cluster, then the infrastructure, like the roads and like water, like sewage, it costs a lot, but they can put in the one place so they can save the construction fee. So I think this can also this might help, but it's just the bill suggested. Um, yeah, yeah. So that's the thing that I wanted to add.
Mahalo, SongYi. We have one question popped up here. There's a friend of ours, Kobika Kahiapo, just asking, I know he works with the youth and youth food policy councils, just asking how we can educate youth better on these issues so they can advocate for change.
Yeah, I think it is important for to educate youth, but also since, as Trey mentioned, the young generation do not want to work on farm, right, on the field. So, but young generation can also help to design and develop the equipment which can be used in Hawaii. Because when for example, when I met the farm manager in Mahipono in Maui, and she said there are like big harvesters and like big machines available, but it does not quite fit to Hawaii terrain. So she's really wanting to find the good equipments which fit to Hawaii. So I think young generations can develop and work in that industry to develop the equipments which fit to Hawaii. And so I think there are potential job career that help the ag industry in Hawaii from the young generation.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing to close on here and just emphasize this is like a huge cultural thing I notice, with our youth and just in the understanding of what all these things, what it costs in true costs and human costs and everything for food and agriculture. And, there's a lot I think we can all do to like bring awareness to that and really value our farmers, our farm workers and everything. So, I just want to mahalo you both for taking the time to attend. Thank you to our guests. I will process this video as soon as possible. We're at time now, so just want to wish everyone a beautiful day. Mahalo nui.
Thank you.
Hello.
Aloha.